into our country from invasion from some foreign power, then of course you have a waiver for not having a balanced budget at that time. But at least having passed the House and Senate, it would take 2/3, yes, and 3/4 of the states. But back in 1996, that balanced budget amendment vote failed by 1 vote in the Senate. It passed the House, 2/3, and it lacked 1 vote in the Senate. 1996. Since then, we have added $9 trillion to the debt. That gives you an example of why I feel so strongly about having a balanced budget amendment to restrain members of Congress from spending. In the next slide. Well, this basically just shows it in another way, the crushing burden of debt as a share of the economy, gross domestic product, and what's happened over the last that's 70 years, and it is 1940 to here at least is 70 years. And if we stay on this path, that's a scary thing. If we stay on this path, if we don't make these changes, you just see what it goes to, a percentage going out to the year 2075 to something like 800% debt as a percentage of the gross domestic product. And then in small print, the national debt grows by $3 billion a minute, $4.2 billion a day, and this is important, very important, has grown $4.2 trillion in the 945 days since the beginning of the Obama administration. That was from the Los Angeles Times just a couple of days ago. Next slide. Well, this is what is killing us, and I'm sure many of you know it, whether it's yourselves or your children and your grandchildren, and many of them back home, and you're trying to help them, and they're good, diligent, hardworking people. Many of them college graduates, can't find jobs. That current national unemployment rate, 9.1%, but for Bartow County, it's even worse at 10.8%. 29 consecutive months of 8% or higher U.S. unemployment. That's right in here. So is it a crisis? You're darn right it is. You're darn right it is. And this is information that I didn't just pull out of the air. Believe me, it's accurate stuff, unfortunately. Next slide. Well, what are we doing? And unfortunately, a lot of the things that are being done in the Congress, legislation will get passed on the House side, where my party is in the majority, and it'll go to the Senate, and it'll just sit there. And a lot of things have been done and passed, and maybe we've got some handouts that we can show you on that, particularly in regard to some of the bureaucracy and the rules and regulations that come down from agencies like EPA and OSHA and others that make it almost impossible of small business men and women to continue to create jobs and grow the economy. Look at this. According to the Small Business Administration, SBA, small business faces annual regulatory cost of $10,500. Well, like I say, here are some of the things we have done. Require congressional review and approval of any government regulations that have a significant impact on the economy of small businesses. Audit existing and pending regulations to identify and address those that hinder economic growth, which many of course do. John, is there another part to that? Well, that's enough, and again, I thank y'all so much for being here and giving me the opportunity, and this beautiful facility is a tribute to, of course, your sole commissioner, Clarence Brown, who has been at the helm for, 20 years now, and a great man, and I certainly have enjoyed working with him, working with Mayor and Council. Mayor Pro Tem Diane Tate has been a great friend of ours, and Matt Santini and folks in Bartow County, which I'm very proud to be able to continue to represent. Travis, did Barry come back in? I can get him. It's okay. I mean, I just wanted to recognize. Also, our House member, Christian Comer, is here. Christian, raise your hand so everybody can see you. I was bragging on him outside. He said he had one more week that he could wear that white coat, because this is the great time of the year where people wear the seersucker and cord and get comfortable, and particularly here in the South. But Christian's doing a great job in his first term, is it? Let's see, who else is, I wanted to recognize, John, I thank you for this. The superintendent of the Bartow County Schools, Dr. Harper, are you here? Oh, great, yes. John, thank you so much for being here. And of course, I already mentioned Mayor Pro Tem Diane Tate, and then Chattahoochee Tech. Is Ron Newcomb here? Ron, listen, let me make a brief comment on Ron Newcomb. I saw in the paper just recently that he's announced his retirement from the Smyrna City Council after many years of service. And 20 years Ron has served on the Smyrna City Council, and that is a city council that's a very strong, they don't have a lot of turnover. They take the job seriously under Mayor Bacon, and I first met Ron when I was in the Georgia General Assembly in the Senate, and Ron was educational advisor to the governor, and is definitely a friend and an expert on education. Ron, great to see you. Thank you. Okay, it's time for us to take the first question.
We're going to take some questions, and if you'll just raise your hand, we'll probably go from one side of the room to the other. I'll come up and I'll hold the microphone while you ask your questions, and as John said earlier, if you could just try to keep them to one question at a time and maybe under a couple of minutes, just so we can get to everybody who has a question. So you've got your hand up first. We'll start with you, sir.
My name is Mark Dabney, and I have drafted an open letter regarding the demand for forensic evidence proving that bin Laden was responsible for 9/11. And in the court of public opinion, in the sight of God, I implicate that the international plutocracy carried out 9/11 based on the fact that the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld announced $2.3 trillion of career military pension funds missing, gone, vanished. The next day, those records were destroyed. And not only were the records destroyed, the people that were investigating those records, if I understand correctly, the air raid siren did not sound, giving them the warning to get to safety. Those people that were investigating the $2.3 trillion of missing career military pension funds were murdered to cover up that theft. That is impossible without the aid of the international plutocracy. We have examined the evidence. And the evidence does not support the official government-sponsored, media-approved conspiracy theory. It is your conspiracy theory that is under scrutiny. We have been slandered for raising pertinent, reasonable questions and say, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, what about your conspiracy theory? Based on the idea that our government would not yet again lie to us with impunity. And it is the impunity of the international bankers that is destroying our economy. They are leading us into a tyrannical, despotic, one-world government. And I've investigated the Bible. I spent 3 years in seminary. I've learned that there is a satanic counterfeit of Judaism. They created the global fiat empire. And they call it anti-Semitism to agree with the anti-Zionist Jews that acknowledge the crimes and transgressions of Israel.
I'm going to stop you there because there's not a question in this.
My question is, where is the body of evidence that bin Laden carried out 9/11? I have demanded that evidence, and you have failed to disclose anything.
Yeah.
Now, if the evidence that was given to the Taliban in their language does not conclusively prove that bin Laden was responsible for 9/11, and they said, you show us the proof, we'll hand him over, and on the other hand, the translation given to Congress, the thing is, if they were not given a conclusive body of evidence as they demanded, rightly and morally, then they were doing nothing more than defending their homeland against an illegal and unjust foreign invasion based on treasonous lies.
Mark, I think that you did get to a question. In fairness to the others that are here that want to ask questions and have an answer, I will be glad to meet with you after this is over with.